You are tired of waiting, and the worst part is not the delay. The worst part is the silence. Heaven feels closed, doors don't open, and deep inside you think, did God forget me? What if I told you that Jesus spoke directly to Saint Faustina about this kind of waiting, the kind that wears faith down and drains the soul of strength? In the diary, she records that Jesus does not despise delay. He watches what the delay is forming inside you. And in a moment of mystical intimacy, he reveals why some graces seem to take longer and why it is precisely there that the enemy tries to steal your trust. Today, I will show you what Jesus said to Faustina for souls exhausted from waiting, and how this can restore peace to your heart. Subscribe to the channel and write in the comments, Jesus, I trust in you. To understand this direct truth about waiting, it is important to remember that Saint Faustina did not write as someone who lived in constant spiritual comfort. On the contrary, she knew firsthand what it means to wait without seeing, to obey without feeling, to remain faithful when everything seems still. Helena Kowalska was born in 1905 in a simple village in Poland, into a farming family, little schooling, a hard life, work from a young age. When she entered the congregation of the Sisters of Our Lady of Mercy, she took the name Maria Faustina, and her convent life remained humble. Cooking, cleaning, answering the door, small tasks, repeated days. And it is precisely within that routine that the mystical experiences begin. On February 22, 1931, in Płock, she describes the first great apparition of the merciful Jesus, with two rays flowing from his heart and the request for the image bearing the words, Jesus, I trust in you. From that moment on, Faustina began recording everything out of obedience. Dialogues with Jesus, warnings, consolations, visions, and also long periods of dryness, misunderstanding, and the apparent delay of promises. The diary, with its hundreds of pages, reveals a spirituality that is deeply Catholic, centered on the Passion of Christ, on trust, conversion, and the sacraments. There was caution and difficulty at first, including issues caused by imperfect translations, but over time, the message was recognized. On April 30, 2000, St. John Paul II canonized Faustina and established the Feast of Divine Mercy for the entire Church. And here is what makes Faustina an authority for those who are tired of waiting. She does not speak as someone who received everything quickly. She speaks as someone who learned with Jesus that waiting can become an altar and that God often works in silence. In many passages of the diary, Saint Faustina reveals that Jesus spoke to her precisely during the periods when nothing seemed to be happening outwardly. Not on days of consolation, but on long, repetitive days when the promise felt distant. And it was in one of those moments that Jesus revealed to her why so many souls grow weary of waiting. Faustina writes that one night, after weeks of interior dryness, she felt completely drained. She describes a sense of silent abandonment, not rebellion, but exhaustion. In prayer, she simply said, Jesus, I have no strength left. Then his presence made itself felt gently, without grand visions, but with words that pierced her soul. Jesus said to her, Diary 1160, My daughter, the greatest graces I prepare in silence, when the soul no longer relies on itself. Faustina understood that waiting is not emptiness. It is stripping away. Jesus showed her that many souls want the promise, but do not want the process that makes them capable of sustaining it. The delay, then, is not punishment, it is preparation. In another moment, Jesus is even more direct, Diary 1258. When it seems that nothing is happening, I am acting most deeply. Faustina recounts that she saw, in spirit, a soul kneeling, tired, with empty hands. To human eyes, it looked like failure. But Jesus showed her the interior of that soul being shaped like clay in the hands of the potter. There was no haste, there was intention. He explained to her, Diary 1784, I delay many graces because I desire to give something greater than what the soul is asking for. Here is the truth that is hard to hear. Many times, God is not delaying the answer, He is enlarging the heart. Faustina also records that Jesus suffers when a soul gives up during waiting. He says, Diary 1489, distrust wounds my heart more than sin. Not because God is fragile, but because distrust breaks the channel through which grace flows. Waiting becomes unbearable when the soul interprets silence as rejection instead of hidden work. Scripture echoes this in Psalm 27:14. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Jesus helped Faustina understand that waiting is a high form of faith. It is believing when there are no signs, no dates, no visible guarantees. That is why he tells her something decisive. Diary 1779. Patient trust obtains more than agitated pleas. The tired soul is not despised. It is watched with tenderness. But there is a point of decision. Either the soul abandons itself, or it hardens. And this leads us to understand how this waiting works in the spiritual realm. To understand the spiritual weight of waiting, we must look beyond human time. Saint Faustina was led by Jesus to perceive that while the soul waits, something very real is happening in the invisible world, even when, outwardly, everything seems still. In the diary, she describes prolonged waiting as a silent fire. It does not burn like visible suffering, but it purifies intentions, dismantles illusions, and reveals what the soul truly relies on. Jesus explains to her, Diary 1608, I want the soul to learn to expect everything from me and nothing from itself. Theologically, this is connected to the mystery of kenosis, self-emptying. Just as Christ emptied himself, Philippians 2:7, the waiting soul is slowly emptied of control, haste, and demand. Grace encounters no resistance when the soul no longer tries to command God's timing. Faustina sees that, in the spiritual realm, waiting creates space, and grace needs space. Jesus tells her, Diary 1725, I give myself to souls in the measure that they allow themselves to be led. While the soul waits, angels work quietly. Faustina describes how they strengthen perseverance, push back despair, and sustain faith when emotion disappears. At the same time, the enemy acts, trying to convince the soul of 3 lies. 1, that God has forgotten. 2, that the promise was never real. 3, that waiting is a waste of time. Jesus warns Faustina about this, Diary 1409. Satan takes advantage of silence to sow distrust. Yet it is precisely in this silence that the communion of saints becomes most active. To pray without feeling, to wait without seeing, to remain faithful without immediate reward unites the soul deeply to the passion of Christ. This is not empty waiting. It is participation in the Paschal mystery. St. Paul writes, if we suffer with him, we shall also be glorified with him, Romans 8:17. Faustina understands that waiting is a form of redemptive suffering, not dramatic, but faithful. Jesus confirms this, Diary 1513. Every waiting endured for love has eternal value. From the eternal perspective, delay is never wasted. Each day of silent fidelity expands the soul's capacity to receive. That is why many graces arrive abundantly, unexpectedly, almost overwhelming, because the soul was prepared slowly. And here is the theological key. God does not measure time as we do. He works in eternity, while we wait in time. As Psalm 37:7 says, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Waiting becomes exhausting when it is lived alone. But when it is lived with Christ, it becomes communion. And this leads us to the most practical point: how to pass through waiting without losing faith. After hearing what Jesus revealed to Saint Faustina, Waiting is no longer just a problem to solve. It becomes a time to inhabit. And Jesus was extremely concrete in teaching how to live this season without losing faith. Step 1. Name your waiting before God. Jesus said to Faustina, Diary 1485, I delight when a soul speaks to me with simplicity about what causes its suffering. Do not wait for beautiful words. Say in prayer, Jesus, I am tired of waiting for this. Naming the wait is the first act of trust. Step 2. Turn waiting into a daily offering. Faustina learned to offer delay as a small, hidden sacrifice. Jesus told her, Diary 1760, every act of resignation unites the soul to my passion. Each morning, consciously offer the day that has not yet brought answers. Receive, Lord, this day without signs. Step 3. Practice trust without feeling anything. You may not feel peace. That is okay. Jesus clarifies, Diary 639. Trust is an act of the will, not a feeling. Repeat, even without emotion, Jesus, I trust in you. This trains the heart to remain. Step 4. Stop measuring God by the clock. A common mistake is counting days, weeks, years. Faustina records that Jesus warned her, Diary 1182. Whoever measures my action by human time grows weary quickly. Replace the question, when, with, how can I be faithful today? Step 5. Lean on the sacraments. Waiting becomes unbearable when the soul tries to carry it alone. Frequent confession and the Eucharist sustain perseverance. Jesus affirmed, Diary 1602, in the sacraments, I strengthen weary souls. Step 6. Pray for others while you wait. Faustina discovered that interceding for others lightens the weight of one's own waiting. When you pray for someone who is more tired than you, your heart expands. Signs that waiting is becoming transformative. Little by little, you may begin to notice less anxiety, even without answers, greater patience with people, less need to control everything, a quieter faith, yet a stronger one. None of this is spectacular, but it is real, and this is how God works. Jesus did not promise speed, he promised presence. Diga. And now, to make this even more concrete, I want to tell you a story of someone who lived exactly this kind of waiting, long, silent, and transformative. Let me tell you about Margaret, a 58-year-old retired teacher from Pennsylvania, a faithful Catholic, Sunday Mass, daily prayer. On the outside, everything seemed stable. On the inside, she carried a waiting that had lasted more than 10 years. Margaret's oldest son had drifted away from the faith, from the family, and gradually from her. Few phone calls, no visits, silence. Every day she prayed for the same thing. Lord, bring my son back. And nothing changed. Over time, prayer became heavy. Not because she stopped believing in God, but because she began to wonder whether it was worth continuing to wait. During one Lent, while reading Saint Faustina's diary, something touched her deeply. A simple sentence from Jesus, Diary 1779. The soul that perseveres in trust, even without seeing fruits, glorifies me more than the one who receives consolations. Margaret decided to do something different. Instead of asking for results, she began to offer the waiting itself. Every day at 3 p.m., she simply said, Jesus, this waiting is yours. Do with it whatever you wish. Nothing changed immediately. Her son remained distant, but she changed. Less anxiety, less interior pressure, more confident silence. 3 years later, on an ordinary evening, the phone rang. It was her son. No long explanations, no speeches. He simply said, Mom, I need to come home. Today, Margaret says something that is striking. If God had answered earlier, I would have lost what the waiting did in me. Her son's return was a grace, but her interior transformation was the silent miracle. This is the logic of mercy that Jesus taught Faustina. God wastes no waiting that is entrusted to him. And this brings us to an essential point. We must understand what waiting is not, so that we do not fall into spiritual illusions. Before closing, it is necessary to make an essential clarification, with the same spiritual sobriety Saint Faustina maintained in her diary. The waiting Jesus teaches is not passivity, nor empty resignation. Waiting does not mean crossing your arms or accepting injustice or error as if it were God's will. What Jesus forms in the soul is not inertia, but active trust. Faustina records a clear warning from the Lord, Diary 1180. Do not confuse abandonment with negligence. In other words, trust does not cancel human responsibility. The soul must pray, act according to conscience, seek the sacraments, correct what is within its reach, and entrust to God what it cannot control. Another important point: waiting does not obligate God to grant exactly what we desire. Mercy is not a contract. Jesus explained to Faustina, Diary 1397, trust does not consist in demanding, but in accepting my will. This protects the soul from two dangerous spiritual traps: turning prayer into a demand, measuring God's love by visible results. The Church has always taught that grace works in harmony with the sacraments. That is why Faustina insisted, confession and the Eucharist are where the weary soul is sustained. Jesus told her, Diary 1602, it is there that I strengthen those who have no strength left. If waiting is turning into bitterness, anxiety, or rebellion, something needs to be adjusted. True trust does bring pain, yes, but it also brings deep peace, even without answers. With this clarified, we can conclude with truth and hope, without illusions, but with solid faith. As we reach the end of this message, the truth Jesus revealed to Saint Faustina becomes simple and profound. God is not delaying. He is maturing the soul. Waiting is exhausting because it touches exactly the place where we most want control. But Jesus taught Faustina that true trust is born when the soul accepts not seeing, yet remains. This is not weakness. It is spiritual maturity. Today, you do not need to leave this video with all the answers. You need to leave with an interior decision, a decision to continue, a decision to trust, a decision not to harden your heart. Remember that God's silence is never absence. Remember that waiting is forming something that haste would destroy. Remember that every faithful day has eternal value. Remember that Jesus sees your fatigue and does not despise it. Remember that mercy works in hidden ways. Remember that you do not wait alone. Remember that what God is preparing is greater than what you imagine. Jesus said to Faustina, Diary 723, the soul that trusts will not be put to shame. If today you are tired, tell him, but do not give up. I invite you now to a simple gesture. In the comments, write, Jesus, I trust in you. Not as a habit, but as a conscious act of surrender. If this video spoke to you, share it with someone who has been waiting for a long time, someone who needs to hear that God is still at work. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. Here, we walk together through the spirituality of the saints, through Catholic mysticism, and through the trust that sustains the soul during seasons of waiting. May divine mercy surround you, strengthen your heart, and transform your waiting into a path of peace. Jesus, I trust in you. God bless you.